Oatmeal seems harmless and even healthy, but after 60 our bodies react differently to certain combinations. Today, I'll gently walk you through the hidden risks of mixing oatmeal with some common foods, and simple ways to make your breakfast safe and truly nourishing. Let's start with something I hear almost every week. It's just a little sugar, doc. What harm can it do in my morning oatmeal? And believe me, I get it. Oatmeal without a touch of sweetness can taste bland, even disappointing. But here's the quiet truth for many older adults, that one spoonful of sugar, whether it's white, brown, or even honey, can set off a chain reaction in the body that's far from gentle. After 60, our pancreas slows down. It doesn't handle glucose spikes as quickly or efficiently as it used to. So when you mix in sweeteners, even natural ones, your blood sugar shoots up and stays elevated longer than it should. And those repeated sugar surges, they slowly strain your system, leading to fatigue, brain fog, increased blood pressure, and over time, a higher risk of type 2 diabetes and heart issues. This isn't about being strict or scared. It's about being aware of how small choices stack up in a body that's no longer 30. Back when I worked in Kansas City, I had a patient named Gerald, 72 years old, retired postman, active, alert, and proud of how he took care of himself. He'd start every day with a bowl of oatmeal, just like he had for years. Only now, he was adding a generous spoonful of brown sugar and a drizzle of honey, thinking he was doing something good. After a few months, Gerald started noticing that around 11 a.m., he'd get dizzy and irritable. He'd forget what he was doing mid-task. At first, he laughed it off. "I'm just getting old," he told me. But when I ran his labs, his fasting, blood sugar had climbed into pre-diabetic territory. We talked it through and he looked stunned. "But oatmeal's supposed to be healthy," he said. And he was right. The oatmeal itself was fine. It was what he was putting in it that made the difference. Another woman I remember, Susan from Tallahassee, 69 years old, used to mix maple syrup into her oats, thinking it was better than white sugar. But she'd feel sluggish for hours after breakfast. Once she cut it out and switched to cinnamon and berries, the change was like night and day. More energy, clearer mind, fewer naps. "I didn't realize how much it was slowing me down," she told me. What's often helpful and surprisingly satisfying is using natural flavor without sugar. One of the easiest ways to do this is by adding a sprinkle of cinnamon, a few slices of apple or banana, or a small handful of chopped walnuts. These add gentle sweetness and texture without causing blood sugar spikes. Some of my patients even like a spoonful of unsweetened applesauce stirred in. It's about making your oatmeal comforting and kind to your body. You don't have to give up your morning bowl. You just have to make it work for where your body is today, not where it was 30 years ago. Think of it like tuning a familiar instrument. The song is still yours, just in a key that suits you better now. You've come this far. Your breakfast should help you go even further with steady energy and a clear mind. Small changes, big difference. Here's another one that might surprise you. Dried fruits like raisins, dates, or dried apricots often seem like a healthy, natural choice to stir into your oatmeal. After all, they're just fruit, right? But the problem is they're concentrated fruit. When you remove the water, what's left is a dense package of sugar, and that sugar hits your system fast. For older adults, especially those with sensitive digestion or blood sugar issues, this can be a recipe for trouble. Those tiny bites can cause big spikes in glucose levels, trigger bloating, or even lead to diarrhea. And what's worse, some packaged dried fruits have added sugars and preservatives, which make things even harder on your gut and your heart. It's not about villainizing fruit. It's about understanding what form it takes and how your body handles it differently now than it used to. Years ago, when I worked with a wellness group in rural Georgia, I met Mary, a retired librarian, 68 years old. She loved oatmeal, especially with a good handful of raisins, said it reminded her of breakfasts she used to make for her grandkids. But she also struggled with unpredictable stomach upsets, and her energy would crash by lunchtime. "It can't be the raisins," she told me. "They're healthy." But once we looked at her food journal and noticed it happened every time she added dried fruit, the pattern was clear. I asked her to try something different, just for a week. Fresh blueberries or half a chopped peach instead. She was skeptical, but agreed. The results were fast. More regular digestion, fewer sugar crashes, and, her words, a clearer head. Another gentleman, Thomas, 74, from New Mexico, had a similar issue, but hadn't made the connection. His oatmeal with dried figs felt wholesome, but he'd end up napping by 10 a.m. I thought I needed more sleep, he said, but once he swapped the figs for fresh raspberries, he felt more awake through the day. It's not just about the calories or sugar, it's about how the body handles them when they're packed into tiny bites. One of the most helpful swaps I often suggest is moving from dried to fresh. Try sliced strawberries, blueberries, or a few thin pieces of apple. These fruits still offer sweetness, fiber, and antioxidants, but in a gentler, slower digesting form. And if fresh fruit isn't always available, frozen works just as well. Just thaw a bit before adding, and enjoy the same benefits without the sugar overload. You deserve a breakfast that helps you feel balanced and energized, not one that knocks you off course. Think of fresh fruit as your body's way of saying, thank you in the morning. It's a softer, kinder start to the day. And you don't need to give up the warmth or comfort of your oatmeal. Just give it a partner that supports you back. Now let's talk about something that seems perfectly innocent. Whole milk in your oatmeal. It's creamy, it's comforting, and it's probably what many of us grew up with. But after 60, our bodies don't always agree with it the way they used to. Whole milk is high in saturated fat, and for older adults that can quietly work against heart health. Over time, it may contribute to rising LDL cholesterol levels, that's the bad cholesterol, and increase the risk of clogged arteries. The body becomes more sensitive to these fats with age, especially if you already have blood pressure issues or a history of cardiovascular concerns. And let's not forget about lactose. As we get older, many people lose the enzyme that helps digest milk properly, which can lead to bloating, discomfort, or irregular digestion. So even though milk may feel nostalgic, it's not always the best choice for your morning bowl anymore. I remember Bill, 75, from Tampa, Florida, a man with a deep voice, wide smile, and a routine he followed like clockwork. Every morning, oatmeal made with whole milk, a touch of butter, and a dash of salt. Old school, he called it. For years, he prided himself on not needing medication, staying active, and keeping things simple. But during a routine checkup, we noticed his cholesterol had climbed steadily over the past 2 years. He was surprised. He hadn't changed anything. But that was exactly the point. His body had. What once worked fine was now taking a toll. When we looked closer, we saw that saturated fat from the milk and butter was a major contributor. He didn't love the idea of changing his breakfast, but he gave almond milk a try. 2 months later, not only had his numbers improved, he told me he actually preferred the lighter feel in his stomach. Another client, Doris, 71, from Oregon, had switched to oat milk simply because it was easier on her digestion. I used to feel heavy after breakfast, she told me, but now I don't need to lie down anymore. One of the simplest and most heart-friendly changes you can make is swapping whole milk for a non-dairy alternative. Unsweetened almond milk, oat milk, or even flax milk are great choices. They're low in saturated fat, gentle on digestion, and still give you that warm, creamy texture you want in oatmeal. Just be sure to choose versions without added sugars. Your heart has carried you through so much. It deserves a little extra care now. Choosing a lighter milk isn't about restriction, it's about adaptation. Think of it like switching shoes as your path changes, not because the old ones were bad, but because your feet have earned something softer. This small change helps your breakfast do what it's meant to do. Nourish you, not weigh you down. Here's one that tends to slip under the radar. Just a pinch of salt in your oatmeal. It might not sound like much, but over time, even small amounts of added sodium can quietly work against your health, especially if you're over 60. Many folks like to prepare their oats in a savory style, adding a bit of salt, maybe some cheese, or even a fried egg on top. While the flavors can be comforting, the hidden salt adds up fast, and our bodies, as they age, become more sensitive to sodium. Blood vessels stiffen, kidneys become less efficient, and the body holds onto more fluid. This can raise your blood pressure, strain your heart, and even increase the risk of stroke. What makes this tricky is that salt doesn't always taste salty. It's just part of the background flavor, so people often don't realize how much they're actually using until the symptoms show up. One woman I worked with, Greta, 70, from Bowling Green, Kentucky, loved her savory oats. Every morning she'd make them with a little salt, shredded cheese, and sometimes a splash of broth. It reminded her of grits, she told me. But for years, she struggled with high blood pressure that didn't respond well to medication. When we finally reviewed her entire morning routine, I noticed the sodium was sneaking in through multiple small ingredients. "But it's just a little," she said. That's true. But it was every day, and it was adding up. Once she started using herbs and salt-free seasonings instead, her numbers gradually improved. She didn't feel deprived, just more aware. Another patient, Leonard, 76, from Arizona, had gotten used to cooking oats with a pinch of salt out of habit. When he cut it out and started adding turmeric and garlic powder, he told me, "I didn't think I'd like it, but it actually tastes more interesting now. I don't miss the salt." What often works best is replacing salt with flavor rather than just removing it. Try using turmeric, cinnamon, or garlic powder to bring depth to your oats. Fresh herbs like chives or parsley can also add a surprising twist. If you like savory, oatmeal, a small sprinkle of nutritional yeast, adds a cheesy flavor with no sodium. The idea isn't to make your food boring, it's to make it better for you. You don't have to settle for less flavor to protect your heart. You just have to get a little creative. Think of your body like a garden that's changed over time, the same soil but new conditions, and with just a few adjustments, you can keep things thriving. Making thoughtful choices about salt isn't about fear, it's about freedom to feel better every day. Let's take a moment to talk about something many folks still believe is better than butter: margarine. For decades, margarine was marketed as a heart-healthy alternative, but we've learned a lot since then. The truth is, many types of margarine, especially the old-fashioned stick versions, contain trans fats. And for people over 60, trans fats can be especially harmful. They not only raise your LDL, bad cholesterol, but also lower your HDL, good cholesterol, a double hit to your heart. Trans fats also contribute to inflammation, which affects your joints, memory, and overall energy. You may not see the damage right away, but over time, that morning tablespoon of margarine, whether mixed into oats or spread on toast, can quietly set the stage for problems like clogged arteries, high blood pressure, or even stroke. Think back to Harold, 77, a retired teacher from Amarillo, Texas. He was active, curious, and loved to read the morning paper over a warm bowl of oatmeal, always with a pat of margarine stirred in. "It melts just right," he told me. But for years, Harold had been managing borderline high cholesterol, and despite his efforts, walking daily, eating more greens, his numbers didn't improve. During one of our visits, we reviewed everything he ate in a day, and the margarine stood out. "But it's not real butter," he said. "I thought I was doing the right thing." Once we switched him to healthier fats, a bit of coconut oil or mashed avocado, his levels began to shift. And more than that, he felt sharper and less tired in the afternoons. Another woman, Lorraine, 71, from New Jersey, had been adding margarine to her oats for flavor. She switched to a small spoonful of nut butter, and after 2 weeks she said, "I feel like my brain woke up." These weren't huge changes, but they mattered. One of the easiest swaps I recommend is using heart-friendly fats. A teaspoon of unsweetened almond butter, a drizzle of flaxseed oil, or a few slices of avocado can give you that creamy texture and satisfying richness without the damage. Even a little coconut oil, used sparingly, can offer warmth and depth without trans fats. Think of margarine like an old friend who meant well but let you down. It's okay to part ways and find something that truly supports you. Your heart works hard for you, every minute, every day. It deserves the kind of fuel that keeps it steady and strong, and so do you. When your breakfast loves you back, you feel the difference. Let's look at something that sounds healthy: yogurt. Many people love adding a few spoonfuls of yogurt into their oatmeal for creaminess and a little tang. And on paper, yogurt is full of calcium, protein, and probiotics. But here's the catch. A lot of the yogurt sold in stores, especially the flavored ones with fruit on the bottom or vanilla swirl, are loaded with added sugars. For older adults, that hidden sugar acts just like any other processed sweetener. It spikes blood sugar, fuels inflammation, and puts extra strain on your pancreas and memory. Even worse, some brands contain artificial sweeteners or thickeners that can upset digestion. So while it feels like you're making a healthy choice, what you're actually doing is layering sugar on top of carbs, and that's not the combination your body needs first thing in the morning. I remember Susan, 69, from Colorado Springs. Every morning, she'd stir a big spoonful of strawberry yogurt into her oatmeal, thinking she was giving herself something nutritious and energizing. "It's my version of strawberries and cream," she smiled. But not long after breakfast, she'd crash, sleepy, cloudy-headed, and often needing a nap before lunch. When we reviewed her meals, I gently pointed out that her yogurt had more than 18 grams of added sugar per serving. That's almost as much as a dessert. "But it says low-fat and probiotic," she said. And it did, but that didn't make it gentle on her blood sugar. After switching to plain Greek yogurt and adding her own chopped berries, she noticed a big change: more stable energy, less bloating. "I didn't know it could make that much of a difference," she told me. I also think of Marvin, 73, from Ohio, who thought vanilla yogurt was a good swap after giving up ice cream, but it kept spiking his glucose. When we replaced it with unsweetened yogurt and a bit of cinnamon, his body thanked him. "It's not as sweet," he said, "but I feel better." One of the simplest things you can do is choose plain unsweetened yogurt, ideally Greek or plant-based, and sweeten it yourself with real food. Fresh or frozen berries, a few slices of banana, or even a sprinkle of cinnamon can bring out flavor without hurting your health. And when you stir that into your oats, you're giving your body steady fuel, not a sugar roller coaster. Your breakfast doesn't need to taste like a dessert to feel satisfying. It just needs to be real. Think of your body like an old clock. It still runs beautifully, but it needs cleaner oil. Yogurt can still be part of your morning, as long as it's the kind that keeps time with your heart, not against it. Let's finish with something that seems so convenient, those little packets of instant oatmeal. You just tear it open, add water, microwave, and breakfast is done in 2 minutes. And I understand why that's appealing, especially if mornings feel rushed or if cooking isn't easy anymore. But here's what most people don't realize. Those pre-flavored, pre-sweetened packets are often packed with added sugar, salt, artificial flavorings, and preservatives. The oats themselves are highly processed, which means they digest quickly, spiking your blood sugar and leaving you hungry again not long after. For older adults, that kind of breakfast doesn't give the steady, lasting energy your body needs. Instead, it can leave you tired, foggy, and prone to crashes throughout the day. And over time, those little packets, while convenient, may quietly contribute to rising blood pressure, unstable blood sugar, and even weight gain. I remember Ron, 74, from San Diego. He was living alone after his wife passed and wasn't cooking much anymore. Every morning, he'd microwave a flavored oatmeal packet, maple and brown sugar mostly. "It's easy," he said, "and it tastes like something." But he started noticing he was gaining weight, feeling sluggish, and needing naps by mid-morning. When we looked at the packet, it had nearly 12 grams of sugar, plus extra sodium and artificial flavoring. "I thought it was healthy," he told me, surprised. Another client, Betty, 70, from North Carolina, used instant oatmeal as a low-effort breakfast between medications. But her blood sugar kept spiking. When we tried switching her to rolled oats made on the stovetop with water and cinnamon, things changed. "It takes a little longer," she said, "but now I actually feel full and calm." One of the easiest ways to make a better choice is to buy plain rolled oats or steel-cut oats and cook them yourself, either on the stovetop, in the microwave, or even overnight in the fridge. You can prepare a few servings at once and reheat as needed. Add your own ingredients, unsweetened fruit, chopped nuts, or spices like cinnamon or ginger. That way, you control what's in your bowl. Convenience should never come at the cost of your well-being. You deserve a breakfast that respects your body and supports your day, not one that just fills space in a hurry. Think of those packets as a quick fix, not a long-term friend. When you take the time to feed yourself with care, even in small ways, your whole day moves more gently, and so do you. Which part felt most helpful to you today? Share it in the comments. I always read them. And if this video brought you clarity or comfort, don't forget to subscribe and tap the bell. You're not alone, and every gentle choice you make is proof that life still blossoms with you in it.